General Ket knelt before the throne. The Emperor glared down his hooked and brutal beak. The general held his position under the withering stares of the room full of sycophants until the Emperor spoke a single word. Report! The honorifics to which the general was entitled had been left unsaid, with Ket feeling the cut like a physical blow to his unprotected belly. He pushed himself to his feet and steeled his nerves. My Lord Emperor, we were defeated by the humans, General Ket said. We are aware of your failure. One does not lose a third of their military without noticing, the Emperor said. The throne room would normally be awash in whispers and intrigue, but as the general stood at the foot of the dais, the room was as silent as the void between the stars. Of course, Your Highness, Ket said, slightly bowing. We would hear the reason for your miscarriage and how the humans routed you. As the Emperor spoke, Ket could feel the eyes of the courtiers and lickspittles locked into his soul. My lord, we advanced to the planet Arandir in force. The natives of this planet had developed a new drive for starships that held the promise of faster and more efficient ships. Your Highness widely directed us to secure this technology for the glory of your empire, Ket said. He felt his mouth trying to rebel against him, dryness in the throat, lips moving too slowly, a tongue which felt 100 pounds too heavy. This we know, said the Emperor. Of course, Majesty. Admiral Hige was in command of fleet operations while I took command of the ground invasion. The Admiral destroyed all opposition upon entering the system. The glory of your empire was plain for all to see. The few ships in orbit and paltry automated defenses were no match for your Majesty's flagship. Within a quarter of a day, I had begun landing troops, Ket said. He felt a bit of routine easing into his speech. He had been delivering reports on military actions his entire adult life, and the familiarity brought solace. We were uncertain of the location of the prototypes and schematics, Ket said. We had a division of Your Highness's best soldiers at the enemy's known research facilities across the globe. I personally commanded the 4 divisions attacking the Arandir capital. The enemy naturally could not stand against Your Majesty's radiance, and we had secured the capital in less than 3 days. The Emperor nodded for the general to continue. Just after dawn on the 5th day post-invasion, the Admiral contacted me. He alerted me to a new fleet exiting FTL. It was a pitiful fleet, the Admiral told me. Barely worth mentioning. That's what he said. It was barely worth mentioning, the Genera said, trailing off, his eyes hollow as his mind went back to the planet. This new fleet was a quarter the size of ours, the General said. We thought that whoever did their simulations and projections must have been asleep the day they planned their attack. The fleet simulators told the Admiral that this new fleet stood only a 20% chance of victory and would take upwards of 50% losses. A ripple of murmurs made its way around the room. The Emperor silenced it with a terrible glance. By midday, we had lost contact with the Admiral. I found out much later that this new fleet had jammed communications throughout the system as their first volley. They descended on our fleet like a flock of carrion eaters. While their warships were busy with the Admiral's fleet, a dozen troop carriers broke through our orbital line and started deploying troops. It was the first time any of us had seen a human. In their armored clothes, they would not seem that intimidating. No wings and only a few above 5 telems tall. You might mistake them for a prey animal, but only once. Humans do not allow you to underestimate them twice. The general felt his right hand began to shake when his talons scrapped against his uniform. He did not care, for he was lost in a memory. Even the Emperor's icy gaze could not penetrate the horrors in the general's mind. They pressed the attack from the moment they made contact with the ground, the general said. They splintered into dozens of small groups. There was no line of battle. They cared nothing for the proper forms. They only desired, they only lusted, for our blood. My troops were cut down by the basketful. Their flying machines, oh yes, they must use machines to fly. Their flying machines wove through the sky like they were born to it. Some of those flying machines would drop explosives on the heads of my people. Some were only there to harry our wingmen. The Emperor sat back in his chair and his face dropped all expression. They had seen our encampments from space on their approach. As befits civilized warfare, we were separated from the natives. Later I learned that the humans would have been much more selective in their destruction had we been intermingled. They had committed to killing us, but not the natives. Their wave of destruction was total. The Admiral's fleet was annihilated, and my ground troops were slaughtered. The Emperor tapped a long, curved talon on his throne. So tell us, Ket, why are you alive still? If these humans were as terrible as you describe, how did you survive? The general looked back up at the Emperor. I am their messenger, Majesty. They kept me alive for their own purpose. I was captured and taken to the leader of their ground forces. One would not have guessed him to be in command. He wore no finery and looked no more special than any other human soldier I had seen. This human told me I would be spared, so that I may come here to tell my story. I spent several days as their prisoner and learned much. The one thing that has truly bothered me is something these humans call adrenaline. When a human becomes scared or anxious, their bodies produce, naturally, a toxic drug that gives them unbelievable abilities, faster reactions, greater strength, more acute mental processing. Most of those human soldiers had been pumping this drug into their bodies for hours or days by that point. The Emperor looked sideways at the general. You say they are a race of addicts? That this drug of theirs gives them superpowers? Yes, Your Highness. Their species has evolved with this capability. I asked them about it over and over. All their answers agreed no matter who I asked or when. There is a gland which produces this drug inside every human. If you were to remove that gland, the human would die. This adrenaline of the humans is their secret weapon. They cannot produce it indefinitely, but when they do... The general trailed off as a shiver ran through him. General Ket, we find your story outrageous, the Emperor said. A species born as addicts to a superpower-creating drug showed up with a quarter the number of your warriors, defeats our forces handily, but spares you to come tell us a fantasy? I understand your skepticism, Your Highness, but that isn't the message they sent with me, is it not? No, Highness. Their message is this: invade no more worlds. Start no more wars. Keep the peace. Humanity is here now, and we are watching. They think to threaten us? The Emperor made to stand, but the general continued speaking. One last thing, Majesty. They have also offered friendship. If we send an envoy to meet with them, they will open diplomatic relations. I do not believe the leader I spoke to cared to send that message, but the human leaders ordered it. I believe the commander of the ground forces I spoke with sincerely hopes you will not send an envoy so that their warriors may continue to fight us. The humans believe it is a great honor to risk their lives in defense of those who cannot defend themselves.